So, how do you create a new product? And I want to talk about that today in terms of what to actually do. So, it's really easy when people say, hey, why don't you just create a new product or why don't you create a new entrepreneurial venture? And I hear this all the time, right? Like, that's basically what I teach, and I hear it in my voice. And it's not nearly as hard as easy as what people think it is, and it's not probably not as easy as what I think it is. But the question is not go and do it and just do this particular thing. The question is, how do you actually do it? What do you actually do? And the process itself is easy, right? I can explain what it is. Super easy. You do something, you do a particular action, you see if it actually works, you stick with that thing if it works, and if it doesn't work, you try something else, and then you keep doing that time in and time again, right? So with the Reciprocity Project, I'm trying to build this sharing economy editing platform, and that's how it started out at the beginning, right? Like, let's build this editing platform where people can come on, they can get help with their writing, somebody's going to help them, it's going to be sort of easy and fluid, and lots of people are going to use this thing, right? And that was the sort of initial thing. But I put it on the internet. First of all, I had to figure out how to build this thing. I didn't know how to build it, so I tried to get a team together in Tallahassee. It was a giant disaster, which is, by the way, why it still says Reciprocity Team if you look at a lot of the stuff. And that was a giant disaster because nobody's willing to do anything for free, right? Like, that is the ultimate goal, or the ultimate sort of thing. I've sort of talked to you about this a lot. Nobody cares, right? And you're the only person that's going to care. So, okay, that didn't work out. So then I tried something else. I got a contract developer. I convinced my wife, thankfully, to allow us to get a contract developer. We found one in the Ukraine, and they built it, and I put it in the internet. And first of all, that developer did not work out. It was not a great relationship. They couldn't great. They built a great product. They could build great product, but they didn't know how to do sort of the long-term relationship over time, and so that fell through. But I found a team in India, and they are wonderful, wonderful people. They're still sort of struggling with figuring out how to build, a decent product, but they're pretty good. And because um, they have sort of longevity focus, and they keep helping out. So that thing is solved, or at least partially solved. But then I put it in the internet, and nobody paid attention to this thing. Nobody cared. Absolutely nobody cared. It was crickets, right? And that's what you often get when you build some sort of website. Nobody cares. So I had to figure out, okay, how do I do this? A friend of mine told me about YouTube. Why don't you put up YouTube videos? He said. So I started putting up YouTube videos. They didn't work. But eventually I found, as I did this repeatedly, I actually kind of found a bit of for some reason, this kind of more trickstery kind of person popped up on my YouTube, and I watched his videos, and he was just like, why don't you do this for 90 days, and then everything's going to miraculously happen. Well, it didn't miraculously happen, as I should have been like, duh. However, I put up videos for 90 days, and then I did it for 180, and then I did it for 360. But then I realized after doing this, there was a pattern. I started seeing things where people were paying attention to certain things. So if I tell more of my story and things like that, people pay attention to that, and they actually enjoy that. So I've really focused on that, and, academic life and research life, and really dealing with a lot of difficult, challenging topics that people were dealing with themselves. And so I started talking about those things, right? And it became I became a lot more open. So as I did this, I actually built a decent YouTube channel now, the Reciprocity Project, that actually has a fair number of views. But then I was like, okay, well, there's all these other platforms. So I started putting stuff out in the other platforms, and they didn't work. I remember with TikTok, having like 8 followers for the longest time, like 8, and nothing happened. And then I figured it out in terms of how to do TikToks, right, over time. And now I've got like 30 something thousand. It's tiny, but still it's growing, right? Like, that's the important thing. So what after all of this, right, is you figure things out and you try it and you figure it out, you try it and you figure it out. But now at this point, I've got enough people that are following along. I got to figure out how to do, make this thing work so people will use it even more. The reciprocity platform, doesn't get as much traction as I hasn't gotten as much traction as I wanted. And that's the end goal, was to get people to use this thing. And so now I've got to figure out, well, how do I do conversions a little better? And I know how to do some of those things with A/B testing, but how do I get people to join it and belong to it and feel like they're contributing, and all of those kind of things, which is a long, tedious journey. And all of these things are rising at the same time, right? Like, as the sort of, I get more attention on YouTube and TikTok and things like that, everything else, people might go and check out the Reciprocity Project a little bit, and they might check it out just a little bit, and then that kind of rises. So you could see, and this has taken, it's almost it's over 5.5 years now, a long time. um, but you could see that this is a gradual, slow process, step by step, where you try something, it doesn't work out, you try something else, and you see if that sticks, and you keep doing that. um, and there's just a lot that goes on. An important part of this is realizing that this is typical, this is normal, and you should expect this kind of behavior. Think about anything else in your life that has happened overnight. It does not happen. Think about athleticism, think about, schooling, anything like that. It's a slow and tedious, boring process that you have to stick with it, and nobody cares, right? And even when you actually get there, quote unquote, no